The grand doors of the Imperial throne room opened with a sound like thunder. General Sarah Chen walked through them, and every eye in the massive chamber turned to stare at her. Then the laughter began. It started as a low chuckle from somewhere in the crowd of alien dignitaries. Then another joined in. Within seconds, the entire throne room echoed with the sound of hundreds of beings laughing at the human general who had just entered. Chen kept walking. Her dress uniform was torn at the shoulder. The left sleeve hung in tatters. Blood stained the front of her jacket, some of it dried, some of it fresh. Her face was bruised with a cut above her right eye that had stopped bleeding but looked painful. Dirt covered her boots and pants. She looked like she had crawled through a war zone to get here. She had. Ambassador Kenji Tanaka rushed forward from the human delegation area, his face pale with worry. "General Chen, what happened? Are you all right?" "My transport was sabotaged," Chen said quietly, her voice steady despite her appearance. "We crashed about 15 miles from the city. I walked the rest of the way." Tanaka's eyes widened. "Walked? General, you should have waited for rescue. You should have—" "We're out of time, Ambassador," Chen interrupted. "Today is our final hearing." I wasn't going to miss it. The laughter grew louder. Chen ignored it and continued her walk across the massive floor toward the throne. The throne room was built to make visitors feel small. The ceiling stretched up hundreds of feet. The walls were covered in gold and precious metals from 1,000 conquered worlds. The throne itself sat on a platform 50 feet high, and sitting on that throne was Emperor Velmoth. The Emperor was huge, even by the standards of his reptilian species. His scales were deep purple, a color that marked him as royal blood. His eyes were yellow and cold like a snake watching a mouse. He wore robes that cost more than a spaceship, and on his head sat a crown made from the bones of the last species that had challenged his rule. "So," the Emperor's voice boomed across the chamber, amplified by technology hidden in the throne, "humanity sends us a beggar in rags." How appropriate, more laughter. Chen reached the proper distance from the throne and stopped. She did not bow. The human delegation had argued about this for days, but Chen had been firm. Earth bowed to no one. "Emperor Velmoth," Chen said, her voice clear and strong. "I am General Sarah Chen, commander of Earth's 5th Fleet. I come to speak on behalf of humanity's petition to join the Galactic Hegemony." A tall, elegant creature with blue skin and 4 arms stepped forward from the crowd. This was Lord Kalresh, one of the Emperor's closest advisors. He looked at Chen like she was something he had stepped in. "Humanity has been petitioning for 5 years, Kalresh said with obvious disgust. 5 years of begging for what you have not earned. Look at you. You cannot even arrive at court properly dressed. You are wounded, dirty, and weak. This is what humanity offers us. This is your finest warrior?" Chen turned her head slowly to look at Kalresh. Her dark eyes were calm, but there was something in them that made the advisor take a small step backward. "I am not wounded because I am weak," Chen said. "I am wounded because someone tried to kill me and they failed." A new voice rang out deeper than the Emperor's, carrying the promise of violence. "Perhaps they simply did not try hard enough." The crowd parted and King Drazoth entered the throne room. Chen had seen pictures of the king, but they had not prepared her for the reality. Drazoth stood 9 feet tall, his body covered in thick armored scales that looked like they could stop bullets. His arms were as thick as tree trunks, ending in claws that could tear through metal. His face was a nightmare of teeth and horns. He had killed champions from 50 different worlds. He had never lost a fight. He was the Emperor's enforcer, his executioner, and the living symbol of the Empire's power. Drazoth walked toward Chen with slow, deliberate steps. Each footfall shook the floor. He stopped 10 feet away from her and looked down at the small, injured human. 5 years, Drazoth said, his voice a growl. 5 years of listening to humanity beg for membership. 5 years of claims that your species deserves a place among us. And this is what you send? A broken little creature in torn clothes? Chen met his eyes. "I'm here, aren't I?" Drazoth laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "You are here, yes. Bleeding and pathetic. Tell me, human, why should the Empire accept your kind? What do you offer us except weakness and soft flesh?" "We offer the same thing every species has offered," Chen replied. "Our skills, our knowledge, our strength." "Strength?" Drazoth leaned closer, his breath hot on Chen's face. "You know nothing of strength. Your species has existed for thousands of years and conquered only one planet. My species ruled 10 star systems before we joined the Empire. You are prey pretending to be predators. Chen did not move, did not flinch. Then prove it. The throne room went silent. Even the Emperor leaned forward on his throne. What did you say? Drazoth asked, his voice suddenly quiet and dangerous. I said prove it, Chen repeated. You claim we're weak, prove it. Your empire has a tradition, doesn't it? Every species that wants to join must face a trial by combat. We've studied your history. Every species currently in the Empire earned their place by fighting one of your champions. So here I am. I accept the trial. Ambassador Tanaka made a sound of horror from the human delegation area. General, no. We haven't authorized. Chen ignored him. She kept her eyes locked on Drazoth. Unless, of course, you're afraid. The throne room erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages. Some laughed even harder. Others looked shocked. The Emperor raised one clawed hand and silence fell immediately. You wish to face King Drazoth in combat? The Emperor asked, and Chen could hear the amusement in his voice. You, a wounded human, against the undefeated king? Yes, Chen said simply. Drazoth threw back his head and roared with laughter. Oh, this is perfect. 50 years I have waited for entertainment like this. Yes, little human. Yes, I will face you. I will break you slowly, so that all the galaxy can watch and understand what humanity truly is. The Emperor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Very well. The trial is accepted. You will have 24 hours to prepare, human. Then you will face King Drazoth in the combat sphere. If you somehow survive, humanity will be granted membership. When you die, as you certainly will, humanity's petition will be rejected forever, and your species will be banned from ever requesting membership again. I understand, Chen said. Do you? The Emperor asked. Do you understand that no one has survived combat with King Drazoth in 50 years? Do you understand that you will die tomorrow? Chen looked up at the Emperor, then at Drazoth, then around at all the laughing, mocking aliens in the throne room. Maybe, she said, but at least I showed up. She turned and walked out of the throne room, ignoring the laughter that followed her. Ambassador Tanaka and the rest of the human delegation rushed after her, their voices full of panic and anger. Behind her, Emperor Velmoth watched the small, injured human leave. He was still smiling, but something about the human's calmness bothered him. Something about the way she had looked at Drazoth, like she was studying him rather than fearing him. The Emperor pushed the thought away. Tomorrow would be entertaining at least, and after tomorrow, humanity would finally stop bothering him with their ridiculous requests. He had no idea how wrong he was. The medical bay smelled like antiseptic and fear. General Sarah Chen sat on the examination table while a human doctor worked on the cut above her eye. Ambassador Tanaka paced back and forth, his face red with anger. This is insane, Tanaka said for the 10th time. You had no authority to accept that challenge. Do you understand what you've done? You've bet humanity's entire future on a fight you cannot possibly win. I know, Chen said calmly, you know. You know? Tanaka stopped pacing and stared at her. Then why did you do it? Chen waited until the doctor finished with her stitches before answering. Because it was always going to come to this, Ambassador. You've been negotiating for 5 years. Has it gotten us anywhere? We were making progress. We were being laughed at. Chen interrupted. Every species in the Empire earned their membership through the trial by combat. Every single one. Did you really think they would let us in any other way? Tanaka opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew she was right. At least we could have sent someone who wasn't already injured, another delegation member said. This was Colonel Martinez, Chen's second in command. General, with respect, you're in no condition to fight. Chen slid off the examination table. Her ribs hurt and her shoulder throbbed, but she had felt worse. 24 hours is enough time to rest. And being injured doesn't matter much when your opponent can kill you in seconds anyway. She walked to the window and looked out at the alien city. The imperial capital was beautiful in its own way. Towers of crystal and metal reached toward the sky. Flying vehicles moved in ordered patterns between buildings. Everything was clean, efficient, and cold. Show me the footage, Chen said. Martinez pulled up a holographic display. General, I don't think... Show me. The footage began to play. It showed King Drazoth's previous fights in the combat sphere. Chen watched silently as the king tore through opponent after opponent. A warrior from the insect species whose exoskeleton shattered like glass. A champion from an aquatic race who lasted only 15 seconds. A massive bear-like creature that stood 8 feet tall, whose neck Drazoth snapped with one hand. He's never fought a human before, Chen said quietly. That's not exactly an advantage, Martinez replied. General, he's faster than you, stronger than you, and his body is literally covered in armor. How are you planning to fight him? Chen was quiet for a long moment, still watching the footage. Do you know why I joined the military, Colonel? Oh, General. I was 6 years old during the resource wars. My city was under siege for 8 months. No food, no medicine, bombs falling every day. My father was killed in the first week. My mother died 3 months later from an infected wound. I survived by hiding in basements, eating whatever I could find, staying one step ahead of the soldiers who wanted to kill everyone they found. Martinez looked uncomfortable. I didn't know, General. Most people don't. The point is, I learned something during those 8 months. Chen turned away from the window. I learned that being stronger doesn't matter if you can't catch what you're chasing. Being bigger doesn't help if you don't know where to hit, and having armor is useless if your enemy knows where the weak spots are. Drazoth won't have obvious weak spots, Martinez said. Everyone has weak spots, Chen replied. I just need to find them. She walked to a training room that the delegation had been given. For the next 6 hours, Chen trained. She did not try to build strength or speed. Instead, she moved through forms, old fighting techniques that humans had been practicing for thousands of years. Karate, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, combat techniques from a dozen different human cultures, all focused on one simple truth: how to defeat someone bigger and stronger than you. While she trained, Chen's mind went back to the memories she usually kept locked away. She remembered being 15, joining her first military unit. She remembered her first real combat at 17. She remembered the battle that had made her famous, the defense of colony ship Prometheus. The Prometheus had been boarded by pirates. Chen had been a young lieutenant then in charge of security. The pirates had been wearing powered armor and carrying weapons that could cut through walls. Chen's team had basic rifles and no armor at all. The battle had lasted 16 hours. 16 hours of fighting in narrow corridors, of watching her friends die, of being shot and stabbed and burned. At the end, Chen had been the last one standing. She had been covered in wounds, barely able to move. But she had been standing and the pirates had been dead. The ship had been saved. Chen had spent 3 weeks in a coma and 2 months in recovery. When she woke up, she had been promoted to captain. That battle had taught her the most important lesson of her life. Humans could survive damage that would kill most other species. Their bodies were built to keep going, to keep fighting, even when they should have been dead. It was a gift from evolution, from ancestors who had hunted by running their prey to exhaustion, who had survived by refusing to give up. Chen finished her training and took a shower. The hot water stung her cuts, but it felt good. She put on clean clothes and sat down to eat. The food was bland military rations, but she ate every bite. She would need the energy. Ambassador Tanaka found her in the evening. He looked tired and worried. I've been trying to cancel the fight, he said. I spoke with every contact we have in the Imperial Court. No one will help us. The Emperor refuses to reconsider. Once the challenge is accepted, it must be completed. I know, Chen said. General, Tanaka sat down across from her. I have a wife and 2 children back on Earth, so do you. We all have people we care about. This fight isn't just about you. If you die tomorrow, every human in the galaxy will be affected. We'll be seen as weak forever. No second chances. I know that too, Chen said. Then how are you so calm? Tanaka's voice cracked. How can you sit there eating dinner when tomorrow you're going to fight a monster who has never lost? Chen put down her fork and looked at the ambassador. Do you know what the difference is between humans and most other species, Ambassador? What? Most species evolved as either predators or prey. The predators learned to be strong and fast. The prey learned to be alert and quick to run. But humans? We're weird. We evolved as both. We were prey for thousands of years, hunted by bigger, stronger animals. But we were also hunters. We learned to track, to plan, to work together. We learned to keep going when every instinct said to give up. We learned to turn our weakness into strength. That's a nice philosophy, General. But tomorrow you're fighting alone against something that will kill you in seconds if you make one mistake. Chen smiled. And there was something cold in that smile. Exactly. One mistake. That's all I need from him. Just one. She stood up. I'm going to sleep now, Ambassador. I suggest you do the same. Tomorrow is going to be very interesting. Later that night, alone in her quarters, Chen did something she had not done in years. She wrote letters. One to her ex-husband, apologizing for the years of absence. One to her daughter, telling her to be strong and brave. One to her military command, containing final orders and recommendations. She sealed the letters and placed them on her desk. Then she sat in meditation, the way her martial arts teachers had taught her decades ago. She focused on her breathing, on the steady beat of her heart. She visualized the fight to come, imagining every possible move, every counter, every opportunity. When she finally slept, she dreamed of old battles. She dreamed of survival. She dreamed of victory against impossible odds, and in his own chambers across the city, King Drazoth also prepared. But he did not train. He did not meditate. He did not worry. He had fought 50 champions from 50 worlds, and all of them had died. Tomorrow would be no different. The human would die, probably within the first minute. It would barely be worth the effort. Drazoth fell asleep looking forward to the entertainment. He had no idea that he was about to fight something he had never encountered before, a species that simply did not know how to quit. Tomorrow the galaxy would learn what humanity truly was. Tomorrow everything would change. The combat sphere was the largest structure General Sarah Chen had ever seen. It was a perfect ball of transparent metal, 300 feet across, floating above the Imperial capital. Inside the sphere was zero gravity, making the fight three-dimensional instead of flat. Around the outside, viewing platforms held 50,000 alien spectators, all waiting to watch a human die. Chen floated at one entrance, wearing simple combat gear. No armor, no weapons except a small knife on her belt. Those were the rules. She looked tiny in the massive space, a small figure alone in the center of the galaxy's attention. Across from her, King Drazoth entered through the opposite door. The crowd erupted in cheers. Drazoth wore ceremonial armor on his shoulders and arms, decorated with the bones of his defeated enemies. His claws had been sharpened. His teeth gleamed. He looked like death itself, beautiful and terrible. Emperor Velmoth's voice boomed through hidden speakers. Citizens of the Empire, today we witness the trial of humanity. General Sarah Chen has challenged our champion, King Drazoth the Undefeated. The rules are simple. No outside weapons, no outside interference. The fight ends when one combatant dies or surrenders. Let the trial begin. A horn sounded. The fight had started. Drazoth launched himself across the sphere like a missile. In zero gravity, his massive strength sent him flying at incredible speed. He crossed the distance between them in seconds, claws extended to tear Chen apart. Chen pushed off from her platform at an angle, spinning her body sideways. Drazoth's claws missed her by inches. She used his own body as a springboard, pushing off his shoulder to send herself tumbling away while he crashed into the wall behind where she had been. The crowd made sounds of surprise. It was the first time many of them had seen anyone dodge Drazoth's opening attack. Chen grabbed a piece of floating debris, a metal bar left from previous fights. She used it to change her direction, bouncing off walls and platforms like a pinball. Drazoth roared and came after her, but in zero gravity his massive size worked against him. He could not turn as quickly. Chen stayed just out of reach, studying him, learning his patterns. Running already? Drazoth bellowed. Is this the strength of humanity? Cowardice? Chen did not answer. She was counting his movements, timing his attacks. Every fighter had a rhythm, a pattern they fell into without thinking. She just needed to find his. Drazoth grabbed a large piece of debris and threw it at her. The metal spun through the air fast enough to kill. Chen twisted her body and the debris missed. But Drazoth had used the throw as cover. He came right behind it, catching Chen off guard. His massive hand closed around her leg. Chen felt bones crack as he swung her like a toy, slamming her into a wall. Pain exploded through her body. The impact would have killed most species instantly. Chen's vision went gray, but she forced herself to stay conscious. Drazoth pulled her close, his teeth near her throat. Time to die, little human. Chen's hand moved fast. The small knife from her belt flashed out, and she drove it into the joint where Drazoth's arm met his shoulder. It was the only spot not covered by scales or armor. Drazoth howled and let her go. Chen pushed away, gasping for air. The knife stayed embedded in his arm. Blue blood floated in droplets around them. The crowd had gone silent. First blood. Chen said quietly, though the microphones picked it up and broadcast it to everyone. You're not invincible. Drazoth's face changed. The casual confidence was gone. Now there was only rage. He ripped the knife from his arm and threw it away. Then he came at Chen again, but this time with no control, only fury. This was what Chen had been waiting for. Angry fighters made mistakes. They collided in the center of the sphere. Drazoth's claws tore through Chen's suit and into her flesh. Chen screamed but held on, wrapping her legs around his arm, using leverage instead of strength. In zero gravity, size mattered less. What mattered was physics and angles. She bent his arm backward, forcing the joint to hyperextend. Something popped. Drazoth roared and used his other hand to grab her head. His claws dug into her scalp. Blood poured from the wounds, floating around them in red spheres. Chen could barely see. The pain was incredible, but she had trained for this. Pain was just information. Her body was telling her she was damaged, but it was still working. Human bodies could take enormous punishment and keep functioning. It was one of the strange gifts of evolution. She twisted her body, using every ounce of her training. Her hand found the pressure point on Drazoth's neck, a spot she had identified from studying his anatomy. She pressed hard, using her thumb like a weapon. Drazoth's grip loosened for just a second. It was enough. Chen broke free and pushed off his chest, sending herself toward a wall covered in handholds. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds now. Her left leg was broken. Several ribs were cracked. But she was still moving, still thinking, still fighting. Drazoth followed, but he was bleeding too now, and his left arm was not moving properly. For the first time in 50 years, he was in an actual fight. You're tougher than I thought, he admitted, breathing hard. But this ends now, he charged again. Chen waited until the last possible second, then pushed off at an angle. But this time Drazoth anticipated it. He twisted mid-flight and caught her. They crashed into a wall together, and Drazoth pinned her there with his full weight. Chen could not move. Could barely breathe. Drazoth's good hand was around her throat, squeezing. His face was inches from hers. Any last words, human? Chen looked into his eyes. Even now, even dying, she did not look away. You've never fought something that evolved as prey, have you? Drazoth paused. What? You're an apex predator, Chen whispered, her voice barely working through his grip on her throat. Top of your food chain. You've never needed to fight dirty. Never needed to sacrifice yourself to win. You've never been desperate. Desperate. Drazoth laughed. You're about to die. I think that qualifies as desperate. No, Chen said. This does. She stopped trying to break his grip. Instead, she pulled herself closer to him. Her hands found his face. Her thumbs found his eyes. Drazoth realized what she was doing and tried to pull away, but it was too late. Chen's thumbs pressed into his eyes with all her remaining strength. She was blind with her own blood, broken and dying, but she did not stop pressing. Drazoth screamed and released her throat to grab her arms, but that gave Chen the opening she needed. She brought her head forward in a brutal headbutt, smashing her forehead into his face. Once, twice, 3 times. Her skull was fracturing, but she did not stop. They spun in zero gravity, locked together, both bleeding, both damaged. The crowd watched in absolute silence. This was not how these fights were supposed to go. Chen managed to get behind Drazoth. Her arms wrapped around his neck in a chokehold she had learned 30 years ago. She locked her broken leg around his waist for leverage. It was a hold called the last embrace in human combat circles, named because the person applying it often died from their injuries before their opponent did. You can surrender, Chen whispered in his ear. It's allowed under the rules. Drazoth tried to reach back, tried to claw at her, but the angle was wrong. He thrashed wildly, using his massive strength. Chen's left arm broke with a sound like a gunshot. She screamed but held on. Her right arm tightened. Surrender, she said again, her voice fading. Drazoth's movements became weaker. His body was running out of oxygen. But he was the undefeated king. He had never surrendered. Never lost. He would rather die than admit defeat, so he did. King Drazoth's body went limp. Chen held on for a few more seconds to be sure, then released him. His body floated in the zero-gravity, motionless. Dead. Chen tried to move but could not. Her body had finally reached its limit. She floated there next to the body of the king she had killed, barely conscious. The horn sounded. The fight was over. The combat sphere filled with the sound of 50,000 aliens making no sound at all. Complete absolute silence. Then General Sarah Chen closed her eyes and let the darkness take her. General Sarah Chen woke up screaming, hands held her down. Voices spoke in calm tones, but she could not understand the words. Everything was pain. Her entire body felt like it was on fire. She tried to fight, tried to escape, but she could not move properly. Something was wrong with her left arm. Something was wrong with everything. General Chen, please stay still. You're safe. You're in medical. The voice spoke English. Chen forced her eyes to focus. A human doctor leaned over her, his face worried. Behind him she could see other humans, all looking at her with expressions of shock and awe. Did I win? Chen asked, her voice barely a whisper. You won, General, the doctor said, and there were tears in his eyes. You killed him. King Drazoth is dead. You actually did it? Chen tried to smile, but was not sure if her face was working correctly. Good, that's good. General, you need to rest now. You've been unconscious for 6 hours. Your injuries are severe. Your left arm is badly damaged. Multiple broken bones, internal bleeding, severe concussion. You should not even be alive. But I am, Chen said. Yes, the doctor replied. You are. Chen closed her eyes and drifted back into darkness. When she woke again, it was hours later. The pain was still there, but dulled by medication. She could think more clearly now. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Easy, General. Ambassador Tanaka was sitting beside her bed. He looked like he had aged 10 years. You're not ready to move yet. What happened after the fight? Chen asked. Tanaka let out a long breath. Everything happened. The Empire is in chaos. Drazoth had been their champion for 50 years. No one believed he could lose. Some species are calling for your execution, saying you must have cheated somehow. Others are demanding to know how you defeated him. And the Emperor, Tanaka paused. The Emperor wants to see you. When? Today in 3 hours. The doctors say you absolutely cannot go, but the Emperor was very clear. He wants to see the human who killed his champion. Chen looked down at herself. She was covered in bandages. Medical equipment surrounded her bed, monitoring her vital signs. Her left arm was in a cast from shoulder to fingertips. She could feel the places where bones had been set, where wounds had been sealed. Help me get dressed, she said. General, you can't. I can and I will. We didn't come this far to miss the next part. 2 hours later, General Sarah Chen stood in front of a mirror, staring at herself. The medical team had done their best, but there was no hiding what the fight had done to her. Her face was swollen and bruised. One eye was nearly shut. Her left arm hung useless in its cast. They had given her a medical gown to wear over her torn uniform. Since nothing else would fit over the bandages, she looked worse than when she had first arrived at the imperial court. Ambassador Tanaka and Colonel Martinez helped her walk to the throne room. Each step was agony, but Chen refused a wheelchair. If she was going to meet the Emperor, she would do it on her own feet. The throne room doors opened. This time there was no laughter. Thousands of aliens filled the chamber, but they were completely silent. They watched Chen limp across the floor, leaving a trail of pain behind her. She could feel their eyes, could sense their confusion and fear. The human was broken, damaged almost beyond repair, and yet she was walking, still standing, still refusing to quit. Emperor Velmoth sat on his throne, his yellow eyes fixed on Chen. His expression was unreadable. Beside the throne, on a platform of honor, lay the body of King Drazoth. The king had been prepared for burial, his wounds cleaned, his body dressed in his finest armor. Chen reached the proper distance and stopped. She did not bow. General Chen, the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the chamber. You have done what no warrior has done in 50 years. You have defeated King Drazoth in single combat. By the ancient laws of the Empire, this means humanity has earned the right to petition for membership. Not petition, Chen said, her voice weak but clear. You said if I won, humanity would be granted membership. Not given another chance to beg. Granted, those were your exact words. A murmur ran through the crowd. No one spoke to the Emperor like that. Velmoth's eyes narrowed. You dare to correct me? I dare to remind you of your own words, Emperor. We had a deal. I won. Humanity gets membership. For a long moment, Velmoth stared at Chen. Then, incredibly, he smiled. You are correct. We had a deal and you have won. But before I make my final decision, I have questions. Ask them. How did you win? Velmoth leaned forward. You were outmatched in every way. Drazoth was faster, stronger, more experienced. His body was armored. Yours was already damaged before the fight began. By all logic, you should have died in the first minute. So how did you win? Chen was silent for a moment, gathering her thoughts. The medication was making it hard to focus, but this answer was too important to get wrong. You're right, she finally said. He was stronger, faster, better equipped. He should have won easily. But he made one mistake. What mistake? He thought the fight would be easy. Chen looked around the throne room, making eye contact with as many aliens as she could. Your empire has been at peace for a long time. Your warriors train, they practice, they study. But they don't fight wars of survival anymore. Drazoth had defeated 50 champions, but all of them came from species that were already part of your empire, species that had been living in peace and prosperity for generations. He had never fought someone who grew up in war, someone who learned to fight by surviving. You claim that humans are better warriors? Lord Kalaresh stepped forward, his voice angry. No, Chen said. I claim that humans are more desperate. We're younger than most species here. We've spent our entire existence fighting nature, fighting each other, fighting to survive on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We didn't evolve as apex predators. We evolved as prey that learned to fight back. She paused, wincing at a spike of pain. Do you know why humans can run for hours without stopping? Because our ancestors hunted by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. Do you know why we can survive injuries that would kill most species? Because the ones who couldn't survive didn't pass on their genes. Do you know why we refuse to surrender even when we should? Because surrender meant death, so we learned to keep fighting long past the point of reason. The throne room was absolutely silent. Every alien listened to her words. Drazoth fought with the strength of a king, Chen continued. He was magnificent, powerful, perfect. But I fought with the desperation of an animal that knows it's about to die. And in that moment, desperation beat perfection. Emperor Velmoth stood from his throne. It was the first time Chen had seen him stand, and he was enormous, towering over everyone in the room. Your words trouble me, General, he said. If what you say is true, if humans are this desperate, this willing to sacrifice everything, then you are not potential members. You are a potential threat. Chen met his eyes. Only if you make us one, Emperor. We didn't come here to conquer. We came here to join. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We want to learn from you, to grow with you. But we won't beg, and we won't be treated as lesser beings. If you grant us membership, we will be loyal allies. If you reject us, we will go our own way. But either way, we'll survive. We always do. The Emperor was quiet for a long time. Then he looked at the body of his fallen champion. Drazoth was my friend, he said softly. More than my champion, more than my enforcer. He was the one person in this empire I could trust completely. You killed him. Yes, Chen said. I'm sorry. Are you? Are you truly sorry, or is that just what you think I want to hear? Chen thought about it honestly. I'm sorry he's dead. I'm sorry you lost your friend. But I'm not sorry I won. He wanted to fight, and so did I. We both knew the risks. He died as a warrior, fighting to the end. That's an honorable death. Velmoth laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Honorable? Yes, I suppose it was. He looked back at Chen. Very well, General Sarah Chen of humanity. You have proven your species' worth in the way our empire demands. Humanity is granted provisional membership, effective immediately. The throne room erupted in noise. Some aliens cheered, others protested, most simply talked in shocked voices. Chen felt her legs start to give out. Colonel Martinez caught her before she fell. Provisional? Chen asked. For now, Velmoth said. You will have 5 years to prove that humanity can integrate into our society. After 5 years, we will evaluate your species' full membership. I suggest you use that time wisely. We will, Chen promised. And General, one more thing. Yes, Emperor. Never enter my throne room in torn clothes again. Chen looked down at herself. At the torn uniform under the medical gown, at the blood and bandages and broken body. Then she looked back at the Emperor, and she laughed. It hurt her ribs, made her head pound, but she laughed anyway. Because they had won. 3 months later, General Sarah Chen stood in front of a window, looking out at the stars. Her left arm still did not work quite right. The doctors said it might never fully recover. Physical therapy helped, but there was permanent nerve damage. She had other scars too, visible and invisible. But she was alive, and humanity was part of the Galactic Empire. That was all that mattered. General Chen, a voice spoke behind her. They're ready for you, Chen turned. A young ensign stood at the door, looking nervous. Over the past 3 months, Chen had become famous across the galaxy. Everyone knew the human who killed King Drazoth. Some people saw her as a hero. Others saw her as a monster. Most just wanted to meet the strange creature who refused to die. "Thank you, Ensign," Chen said. "I'll be right there." She picked up a carefully wrapped package from her desk and followed the ensign through the corridors of the Imperial Military Academy. The academy was ancient, built thousands of years ago. The halls were lined with statues of famous warriors from dozens of species. Soon they would add a statue of Drazoth. Chen had insisted on it. The classroom was full of young aliens, all wearing academy uniforms. They were the children of the Empire's elite, training to become the next generation of military officers. They stood when Chen entered, showing respect. "Please sit," Chen said, placing the package on the desk at the front of the room. "Thank you for attending this lecture. I know it's not required, and I appreciate you coming." She looked around the room. There were about 50 students representing 20 different species. Most looked curious. A few looked hostile. Chen did not blame them. "My name is General Sarah Chen. You all know who I am and what I did. Today I'm going to tell you why I did it, and what it taught me about strength and weakness." She pulled a chair over and sat down. Standing for long periods still hurt. "Let me start with a question. Who here thinks they could beat me in a fight?" Several hands went up. Chen smiled. "Good, you're probably right. I'm still recovering from my injuries. I'm slower than I used to be. My left arm barely works. Any of you in good health could likely defeat me now. So does that mean I'm weak?" A student from a feline species spoke up. "Yes, strength is physical ability. If you cannot fight, you are weak." "Interesting. Anyone disagree?" Chen looked around. A smaller student from a prey species that looked like a rabbit raised a tentative hand. "Yes, I think strength can be more than just physical," the student said quietly. "You defeated King Drazoth when you were already injured. That took a different kind of strength." "Exactly." Chen stood up excited despite the pain it caused. "That's the lesson I want to teach you today. Physical strength matters, yes, but it's not the only thing that matters. Sometimes it's not even the most important thing." She walked to a display screen and pulled up footage of her fight with Drazoth. The students leaned forward, fascinated. Most had seen it before, but watching it with Chen herself providing commentary was different. "Look here," Chen pointed to a moment early in the fight. "Drazoth has just grabbed my leg. He's about to slam me into a wall. Watch what I do." The footage played. At the moment of impact, Chen twisted her body, turning what would have been a full-force hit into a glancing blow. "I couldn't stop him from hitting me," Chen explained. "He was too strong. But I could control how I hit the wall." That reduced the damage by about half. "It's still enough to break bones, but it kept me conscious." She advanced the footage. "Here, I've just stabbed him in the shoulder joint. Watch his face." "He's shocked. Why?" A student from a reptilian species answered. "Because he didn't think you could hurt him." "Right. He had never been hurt before in the arena. He thought he was invincible. That moment of shock, that realization that he could be hurt, changed everything. It made him angry, made him sloppy, and that gave me opportunities." Chen played more of the fight, pointing out moments where she used leverage instead of strength, technique instead of power, endurance instead of speed. The students watched silently, beginning to understand. "At the end," Chen said, showing the final moments, "I used a chokehold that broke my own arm to apply. It's a technique from human martial arts designed for when you're willing to sacrifice yourself to stop an enemy. Most species don't have techniques like this, because most species evolved in environments where individual survival was paramount. But humans? We evolved in groups. Sometimes the group's survival mattered more than the individual's." She turned off the display and faced the students. "That's the real lesson. Drazoth was a perfect warrior by the standards of this empire, but he had never faced someone who was willing to break themselves to win. He had never fought someone desperate enough to accept mutual destruction if that was the only way." "Are you saying desperation is a strength?" a student asked, sounding skeptical. "I'm saying it can be," Chen replied. "When you have nothing to lose, when you're fighting for survival itself, you find strength you didn't know you had. You do things you didn't think were possible. That's what humanity learned over thousands of years of struggling just to survive." She picked up the wrapped package from the desk and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a sword, beautifully crafted with Drazoth's family crest on the hilt. "This belonged to King Drazoth," Chen said quietly. "His family gave it to me after the fight. At first I didn't want to accept it. I had killed their king. But they insisted. They said that Drazoth would have wanted me to have it, because I gave him something he hadn't had in 50 years. A real fight. A challenge. A worthy opponent. She held up the sword so everyone could see it. I keep this to remind myself that strength comes in many forms. Drazoth was strong in body. I was strong in will. He was a better fighter, but I was more desperate to survive. In the end, desperation won. But that doesn't mean his strength was worthless. It means we need to respect all kinds of strength. A young officer entered the room and whispered something to Chen. She nodded and turned back to the students. I have to go. But before I do, I want to leave you with one final thought. The Empire has been peaceful for a long time. That's wonderful. Peace is always better than war. But peace can make you soft if you're not careful. It can make you forget what real fighting is like. Drazoth was a great warrior, but he had never fought a real war. He had never known desperation. When he finally faced it, he didn't recognize it. Chen paused at the door. Don't make his mistake. Train hard. Learn from every species, even the ones you think are weak. Because weakness and strength are not always what they seem. Class dismissed. She left the students whispering among themselves and followed the officer through the academy. They were going to meet someone important, though Chen had not been told who. They arrived at a private meeting room. Inside, sitting alone, was Emperor Velmoth. Chen stopped in surprise. The Emperor smiled, though it was not a particularly friendly smile. Sit, General Chen. We need to talk. Chen sat, her body tense. Private meetings with the Emperor were never casual. How are you finding your new position? Velmoth asked. Teaching is harder than fighting, Chen admitted, but I think it's important work. It is. I have been watching your lectures. You teach well. The Emperor stood and walked to the window. I want to tell you something that very few people know. When I accepted your challenge 3 months ago, I expected you to die. I wanted you to die. Not because I hated you, but because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of change. Velmoth looked old suddenly, tired. I have ruled this empire for 200 years. In that time, we have been stable, peaceful, prosperous. But we have also been stagnant. No new ideas, no challenges, no growth. We have been coasting on the achievements of our ancestors. He turned back to Chen. Then you arrived, injured, desperate, refusing to bow. You challenged our strongest champion and killed him. You forced us to see that we had become complacent, that our invincible champion could be defeated by someone smaller and weaker, simply because she wanted it more. I don't understand. Are you saying I helped the Empire? Yes, Velmoth said, though it pains me to admit it. Your victory woke us up. Already, military training across the Empire has changed. Students are learning human techniques. Warriors are studying endurance and desperation tactics. You have started a revolution in military thinking simply by refusing to lose. Chen did not know what to say to that. But there is a problem, the Emperor continued. There are threats coming. Our intelligence has detected unknown forces at the edge of Empire space. Hostile. Aggressive. They destroyed 3 of our colony worlds before we even knew they existed. We need to respond. And we need warriors who understand what real combat means. Warriors like you? You want me to lead an attack? Chen asked. No, I want you to lead a defense. I want you to teach our military how to fight like humans, how to survive, how to win when you should lose. The Emperor's eyes were intense. Will you do this? Chen thought about it. She thought about Earth, now connected to thousands of alien worlds. She thought about humanity's future in the stars. She thought about the students she was teaching and the warriors they would become. Yes, she said, I'll do it.